You know, it wasn't long ago that I used to report on the Tesla delivery numbers every time because it was always breaking a new record. And I loved titling videos that. I always loved being able to say Tesla beat EV delivery records again this year. And sadly, after today's delivery report, it's the first time that I can't exactly say that for the year. Usually this is the time of year where we get to brag about how Tesla beat Wall Street expectations again and how EV deliveries are growing. But sadly, for all kinds of different reasons, they're actually reporting fewer vehicles delivered in 2024 than in 2023. And it's not by a large margin. It's really only a decline of 1% or 2%, which is not major. But I think a lot of Tesla investors are concerned and worried about forward-looking statements for a lot of the expectations that Tesla has set. You know, just a couple months ago, they said they expected to deliver 515,000 vehicles and instead delivered 495,000. And Tesla's usually pretty good with guidance in the past. At least as long as I've been following them, they tend to either hit or exceed their delivery guidance. And I think a lot of people are just a little concerned that for the first time in a long time, they're actually starting to miss guidance. And missing your estimates by a couple of percent is really not that big a deal in my opinion. Like, I think Tesla's going to be fine. I don't think there's a risk of bankruptcy because energy deployments also have gone way up. I think partly because they're not delivering as many vehicles as they initially thought they would, and that's freeing up a lot of their battery supply chain, and the margins in the energy business are great. So again, I don't think Tesla's in trouble, but I think what has a lot of people concerned is the next year or two of EV deliveries, because a lot of investors are just skeptical of any robo-taxi promises because we've been hearing them for so long. I definitely have gotten sick of that narrative because it's just been pushed on us for the past 6-7 years now. We've been told time and time again that, well, we're not really a car company, we're going to be a services company through the robo-taxi network and focus on the long term, focus on the long term, focus on the long term. We keep hearing that over and over again, but we're now into 2025 and there are still no Tesla robo-taxis on the road. Sure, there are technically vehicles that Tesla says will one day become a robo-taxi, but there was all this hype leading up to FSD version 10. I remember following that and how that was going to be game-changing and so much better. And then it was version 11. That's going to be game-changing and so much better. And then version 12. And now the latest one is version 13, which has more end-to-end, nothing but neural net. You know, how many times are we going to be right on the edge of cracking the code and then they roll it out at scale and go, actually, not quite there yet. And I've noticed that Tesla kind of keeps moving the goalposts a little bit with FSD. You know, there was a time back in 2019 when I was watching Autonomy Day where I fully believed Tesla. I was all on board. I was like, wow, 1 million robo-taxis by the end of 2020. Sounds like they know what they're doing. They've got an amazing AI team, and now they're developing their own custom in-house design silicon with Hardware 3. And Tesla was convinced that Hardware 3 was more than enough to achieve full self-driving 10 times safer than a human. And now we come into the more recent comments at the end of last year, and they're not so sure anymore. Now they're like, well, you know, we might have to upgrade the Hardware 3 computers, but Hardware 4 is definitely enough. And I think if we were to look at vehicle deliveries over time, people are probably seeing this taper off, this slowdown. And Tesla kind of had guidance in 2024 that growth wouldn't quite be what it had been in the past, but now actually seeing it start to decline, where now we're not growing at all, we're actually shrinking a little bit. People are wondering, is this the peak of the summit? Like, will sales continue to decline? Or is this just a slight bump in the road and sales are going to grow? Well, given all of the things Tesla tried to increase demand of their vehicles for in 2024, that's mostly what they're planning on doing in 2025, which is why I think a lot of people are kind of skeptical of, is really more affordable vehicle models going to work? The narrative Tesla is pushing on all these earnings calls is we're between two major growth periods. So the Model 3 and Y was a major growth period because those were substantially more affordable vehicles, you know, half the price of the Model S and X. And they're saying we're not quite into the next generation vehicle platform, but once we ramp that up at Giga Texas, then we expect vehicle deliveries to grow by 20 to 30%. But the weird thing about that is that Tesla keeps saying that these more affordable models are really not expected to be all that much cheaper. I mean, the numbers they keep floating around is like maybe around $30,000 before incentives. But Elon keeps advocating to removing the federal EV tax credits, which unfortunately means that if the EV tax credits do go away, away, which it sounds like they will at some point this year, Tesla could cut their own vehicle prices right now by $7,500, and that would still mean that the vehicles are not cheaper at all because the tax credits went away. So the removal of the tax credits really create an uphill battle for them, because in order to make the next generation vehicle platform substantially cheaper and more affordable to the masses in order to unlock that 20-30% growth rate, they have to somehow cut like $14,000 or $15,000 off their vehicle prices, which are already, by the way, in the US at least, around $34,000, $35,000 for Model 3s and Ys. I'm not sure they can cut prices that drastically, if I'm being completely honest, and it should be noted that in 2024, Tesla did cut vehicle prices while improving the product substantially. I mean, for years, we were being told by Elon that, well, the only reason the EV market is dwindling or that our vehicles have lower demand is because the interest rates are so high. You know, most people finance our vehicles, and because the interest rates are so high, there's less people willing to finance their Teslas. But in 2024, we saw Tesla start offering really competitive 0% interest financing. They also improved the Model 3 substantially with the refresh, and then brought back on both the Model Y and the Model 3 the single motor long range configurations, way better range, way better efficiency for much lower prices, and despite all of that, it still wasn't able to turn vehicle deliveries around. Troy Teslike reporting that the US sales substantially declined, as did Europe, and the only reason that the delivery number didn't go down further was because of China. And it's even worse when you consider that Tesla ramped up the Cybertruck in 2024. There were barely any deliveries in 2023, but there were tens of thousands of Cybertruck deliveries throughout 2024, and yet US vehicle deliveries still declined. So that means Model S and X are not doing all that great, and it appears they still have lots of Cybertrucks in inventory, which means even with the lower price cuts at, $80,000 and under with referral discounts and all of that, the demand for the Cybertruck appears to have dwindled quite a bit. So it was either like you're willing to pay $100,000 for the Foundation series, or you're going to wait as long as it takes to get that federal tax credit, or you're going to wait for the single motor version, or hopefully Tesla cutting prices on the all-wheel drive version. So I just feel like a lot of people can only hear robo-taxis are right around the corner so many times because we've been told that for literally half a decade now, and with no money really to show for it. Tesla still does not want to share with us the number of miles between interventions on FSD. This is a crucial statistic that we need to know before they actually start applying for federal approval. And also, Tesla does not want to tell us what the FSD take rate is. If it was providing meaningful revenue, I think they would be happy to share it with us, I don't think they would have cut the price of FSD so drastically if the take rate was really impressive. A few years ago, they were charging $15,000 for FSD, telling people, lock in your price now, lock in the price of FSD before it goes up, and then they lowered it to nearly half that. Now it's $8,000, and they keep giving away free trials. There's been 3 separate FSD free trials in the past year, and they also cut the price of the membership in half. It used to be $200, and now it's $100. And again, still trying to get people hooked on it. Anytime there's a new update, they're like, let's give it away for free again. So I get that Tesla wants to keep pivoting and trying to convince everybody that they're a services company and to value them more like Amazon Web Services instead of a car company. But right now, the car business is what's making most of the money. And I think the energy business certainly helps with the EV demand shrinking, but it just feels a little unfair to me that all of these Tesla bulls that for years would always celebrate anytime Tesla posted a delivery record, and they'd say, wow, look at how many vehicles they delivered. Tesla did a great job. And anytime Lucid or Rivian report kind of a weaker quarter, they always go, oh man, Rivian and Lucid, you guys suck. You're not delivering as much as you'd thought. To then turn around, and then when Tesla makes this exact same mistake and misses their guidance, all the Tesla bulls immediately pivot and go, oh, you know what? Deliveries don't matter. There's no real point to delivering cars because this is a robo-taxi and autonomy company. That's all that really matters, is that robo-taxis are just around the corner. But with that same logic, like deliveries could drop substantially. And I think there's actually a very real chance of that in 2025, depending on when the EV tax credits go away. That could really shoot prices up. And again, Tesla offered more affordable models in 2024. That didn't appear to really help all that much. And the tax credit going away is only going to hurt margins. And I think a lot of Tesla bulls have subscribed to this idea that the tax credits going away is somehow good because that means other auto companies are going to perform worse. And while that may be true with all-electric EV startups, I think the sad truth that a lot of Tesla fans are not acknowledging is that we may be running out of people willing to buy EVs in the first place. I don't think it's just a matter of Tesla not advertising enough. They did advertise a lot in 2024. They did lower prices. They offered 0% interest financing, and that didn't help. That didn't necessarily move the needle like Elon said it would. So they have this belief in their mind that, well, eventually everybody's going to buy electric. So if Tesla's the only company left, then everyone will be forced to buy a Tesla, right? When in reality, with the EV tax credits going away and a lot of people not interested in going electric, there might just be a lot more gas cars on the road, which is a real shame. That's a real bummer. And this might involve the EV transition taking way longer than we thought. And I'm guessing that Elon's guess is that, well, we don't need to convince people to buy EVs. We just need to flood the world with robotaxis, and then each robotaxi will replace 5 gas cars. That's likely his logic, and I just think the robotaxi equation may end up being far more complicated than they initially thought, because, of course, it already has proven to be. Elon thought we'd have millions of them in 2020, and it's 2025, and we're still at exactly 0 autonomous, paid robotaxi rides. This may require Tesla to be a bit more creative with their product offering. Maybe that's what we're going to see later this year, is more diverse product lineups, like maybe the Model 3 could get a hatchback, or the Model Y could get a longer wheelbase and more comfortably sit 7 or 8 people. Just mix it up in some way, shape, or form so that there's more people willing to buy these things, because I don't think you can scale to like tens of millions of vehicle deliveries anymore with just like 4 to 5 different vehicle models. I don't think that's enough, and hopefully some of these other EV startups are able to help move that growth of the EV market by offering more unique things, like the Aptera being a high-range but lower-priced solar-powered vehicle to lower the cost of entry for EVs, especially ones with high range. Or hopefully the company I work for, Tello, can hopefully provide a more affordable and still very practical, utility-focused pickup truck for the masses. We'll see. We've got lots of deposits coming in and conversations going on right now for manufacturers, so I'll keep you guys posted over on Tello trucks, but I just don't really think there's a good way to spin this. I just think deliveries going down year over year after Tesla said they would increase is not a good thing, and falling back on robotaxis as the saving grace for the past 6 years is just kind of getting ridiculous at this point. There's a lot of Tesla fans in their own echo chamber just telling each other, robotaxi, 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 and I'm watching the videos, okay? I've experienced FSD myself, and yes, I've also seen multiple videos in the past week of version 13 turning onto the wrong side of the road and driving where it's not supposed to drive, and there are still safety disengagements and interventions. Sure, there's not as many as there used to be, but in order for this to be ready for prime time, where you cannot intervene at all and there's no steering wheel or pedals, we need to get to the point where this is downright rare and incredibly hard to find. And if it only works well in certain regions, then that means it's not going to bring in as much revenue as Tesla initially thought. And it might be a fun side hustle in a few selected cities, but I don't think it's necessarily going to be the nonstop money train that Elon expects it to be. But we'll see if I'm wrong. I really hope I am, because I genuinely think we need all kinds of different forms of transportation, especially more affordable ones. So I really, really want Tesla to solve robotaxis, but I just think you have to be a little bit crazy to constantly believe that it's right around the corner for this long. What do you guys think? Is Tesla in trouble? What do they need to do to increase vehicle deliveries? Do you really think lowering vehicle prices by $4,000 to $5,000 is actually going to increase demand by 20 to 30%? All those thoughts, let me know what you're thinking down in the comments below. And thank you to everybody supporting this channel directly. Seriously, helps us out a ton, as does just watching these videos. So thanks again. Have an excellent rest of your day.